It's been a great journey where we have sort of studied the Indian market from 4 stages of understanding the market to developing a point of view to thinking about how to take it forward. I think India presents to us a great opportunity because this is the only country in the world where you have the Generation Y that's going to drive workplaces in the next 20 years. The numbers that are going to be joining the workforce would be absolutely amazing in terms of what we will be adding to the workforce. 240 million people would be joining the workforce in the next 20 years. The challenge for the Indian government is of how they employ these 10 million people every year. And that's our challenge also. How we look at them and their moods and mood swings and their tendencies at work and develop products that meets their inspiration and their aspirations. So we've been doing a lot of that in India, very clearly investing a lot of time in understanding that category of people that would be driving Indian corporates in the next 20 years. Very clearly what we're also sort of looking at India is understanding the level of sophistication that India has reached in the last 10, 15, 20 years in office interiors. There's not much to talk about because it was more of carpentered stuff for the last 30, 40 years. It's only now that we're moving into that arena of modular furniture, seating, collaboration products, defining areas as go-between areas, welcoming zones, all of that. So it's really exciting for Steelcase and for our competitors from the same region in Michigan. Surprisingly, all belong to the same area in Michigan from New Zealand, Holland, and Grand Rapids. Looking at the market very clearly, we're seeing sophistication in the market go up very clearly with increase in GDPs, with increase in people traveling, with the people attending conferences, exhibitions internationally. And we're seeing a lot of awareness come through to people. Health and well-being is driving a lot of this absorption that we're seeing today in India. So, we are supposed to talk about the Indian market and how we see that. Two large forces are driving the current characteristics of the Indian market. Deep-rooted cultural mindset of cost first, and anything else that could meet that cost levels. We as Indians would sort of spend a lot of money when it comes to personal spend, but when it comes to spending in organizations, we've seen a lot of things go back and forth in terms of negotiations and stuff. So we've seen that part of the market take a beating when it comes to selling the best products in offices. We're seeing a lot of pushback. We're seeing a lot of time getting spent in educating customers, in educating user groups who don't know much about ergonomics. So it's a long haul, and the company is here to sort of invest and understand that Indian psyche before we start investing in plant and machinery. At Steelcase, we sort of, if you look at the market, it's almost like an $800 million market for us. Almost going to touch $1 billion in the next 2-3 years, looking at the way jobs are getting outsourced to India. Absolutely delightful. When we go across to IT companies, BPO companies, I think the estimates that have been put up by NASSCOM that India would export software almost worth $200 billion seems to be a realistic target. I think we're moving in the right direction, and very clearly that means a lot of jobs coming to India, which is happening. Let me sort of tell you, we breathe this every morning, and it's amazing when we travel to all the cities across India about how jobs are getting outsourced to India, and that's where sort of we think we can sort of give a lot of value to our customers in that space of sort of somewhere expanding the performance segment, which means performance of the brand, performance of the product. Very clearly, you have products in the budget and value segment which are driven by price, and very thin, stripped down offerings that we do. I think the mantra in success is to get a product which can meet Indian price points but also deliver the performance that it delivers internationally. So we're not trying to strip the product at any stage. We're trying to sort of meet the ergonomic standards, trying to meet environmental standards, trying to meet indoor air quality for all our users here, and still trying to sort of get the product going for our customers in India. So trying to expand the performance segment so that a lot of customers benefit by companies that are going to come to India with their products. So I think the entire stress basically is on interconnected work. I think very clearly we've seen, and we keep talking about cloud computing, we're seeing a lot of our storage needs in offices. All of you sit in offices, you've seen a lot of storages, pedestals, storage, lacking units, sort of all taking in files. We see all of that going away in the next 10 years to cloud computing. Google would have a lot of space possibly in the next 10 years that will sort of take away all the files from offices. Paperless offices are going to finally happen. We're seeing those trends in that direction. So I've been looking at all of that and developing and telling our customers to utilize space which is so expensive. I think we were talking to some people last week. I think space in India is really expensive compared to space in the Western coast, in the US. So we need to be very clear about what and where we invest our monies in. The one big thing that we wanted to speak, because it's a comparative strategy session, was about looking at the market in a macro level. I think few of our competitors do this. I think we do that in terms of going the long haul. We've done a study, actually invested people and survey teams on the ground, both in the US, India and China, to understand the trends and the users for the future. Very clearly, if you look at this is a great slide there. Gen Y population, people born after 1980 till 2000 would be joining the workforce in the next 20 years. And we're looking at those guys very seriously. India would be adding at least 426 million people to that population in the next 20 years. Of this 426 that you see there, 246 million people would join the workforce, which means 10 million jobs every year. So as the debate goes on an FDI that we see every morning nowadays, I think the challenge that the government has, whether bad or good, pros or cons, is about absorbing those 10 million people who would join the workforce every year for the next 20 years. So you would be all interested to know about what our observations have been of studying Generation Y in India. We spent a lot of time, had teams back in the US, Brazil, China, India studying Generation Y across 5 different continents. And why I say continents? Because Mumbai, Chennai are very different as cities. Bangalore, Hyderabad are separate as cities. Calcutta, Delhi are very separate or different as cities. So we found the people open-minded, positive, confident, independent. Now what of these is very different from the Generation X? All baby boomers or the traditionalists, we find differences there on the way they perceive the future, the way they perceive the present.